The series begins with Alex Rider meeting a psychologist because he keeps remembering Yasin. Even though Yasin is seen as a bad guy, Alex isn't scared because there's no immediate danger. Instead, he's troubled by the strange feeling of a connection with him. Alex used to be a teenage spy but now lives a normal life, while Jack is interning at a law firm after finishing law school. One day after school, Alex thinks someone with a weapon is following him. After that, he hides for a moment but realizes he was wrong. Later, Alex talks to Jack and Tom about his worries, and they decide to go on a camping trip to the beach together. As they prepare for a morning run, Alex sees the suspicious person again. Unfortunately, he accidentally crashes into a man and his daughter, Sabina, making his documents scatter, and Alex tries to pick them up. Back at the tent, Alex convinces Tom to go surfing, even though Tom prefers playing video games. By chance, Alex meets Sabina again and finds out they have the same hobby. The next day, Alex goes to visit Sabina, and he's surprised to find out that Sabina's father was a journalist who's busy with his work. Due to the internet issues, Sabina's father calls a technician. Shortly after, Alex is shocked again when he sees that the technician looks like Yasin, the person who's been bothering him. Sometime later, while walking on the beach with Sabina, there's suddenly an explosion at the hotel where Sabina and her father are staying. Alex acts quickly and runs to help, using Sabina's scarf to protect himself, and gets into the hotel. When he comes out, he's carrying Sabina's father that's getting burned by the fire. After that, Alex explains that a man with a scar on his face, pretending to be a technician, had planted a bomb. But the police investigation reveals the explosion was caused by a gas leak. Shortly after, Alex tries to contact intelligence team, but he can't reach Mrs. Jones, the person he was given as a contact. On the way back home, it turns out Alex managed to save Sabina's father's life. But to make sure it was really Yasin, Alex decides he needs to talk to Mrs. Jones again. When Alex comes back, he goes to the intelligence headquarters, but it's empty. He then stares at the security camera, which catches Alan's attention, but Alan refuses to inform Mrs. Jones. The scene then showing an incident 6 months ago where a cyber attack on the American military's defense center, especially the Pentagon, happened. The attacker managed to get into the system that controls nuclear weapons. Just before they could launch, the commander stopped it by shutting down the power. At the same time, the commander asked the new CIA deputy director, Brian, for help to find out who did it, and it turns out the perpetrator was detected to be from London. In the present, Brian invited Alan and Mrs. Jones to her office to talk about the cyber attack on the Pentagon 6 months ago. If it hadn't been stopped, it could have led to launching nuclear weapons. After an investigation, the CIA found digital traces of the hacker who called themselves Smoking Mirror. 3 months before, Smoking Mirror met with Edward, Sabina's dad, because of an article he wrote in the newspaper. At that moment, Edward asked about why the Pentagon was attacked, but Smoking Mirror avoided giving details, saying it was too risky for Edward to know more because he could become their target. Shortly after, Alex received information from Sabina that her father is in a coma and currently being treated at a private hospital in London. Upon hearing this, Alex gets worried that there's still a threat to Edward's life. So, he decides to visit him, aware of the dangers still around. Not long after, Smoking is seen outside the hospital where Edward is getting treatment. At the same time, Alex tells Sabina he's worried about her dad's safety when he sees how bad Edward is. Alex thinks Edward's involvement with a book about the feathered serpent or Damian Cray might put him in danger, which Sabina might not know about. When Alex goes back to Edward's room, he sees someone trying to get in. So he chases after Smoking, but he managed to escape. Meanwhile, Smithers tries to track down the hacker's online activities. Suddenly, he remembers something similar happening before but can't remember the details, which slows down the investigation. Alex tries to contact the intelligence team through David again. However, David doesn't know where Alan is, but he remembers a club they used to go to. Meanwhile, the intelligence team focuses on Daniel, a political activist with left-wing beliefs. He stole secret information in the past and shared it online. After getting arrested, Daniel went to jail 4 years ago but got out 6 months ago. Smithers thinks they can make Daniel talk by pressuring him, and he also believes that Daniel hired Smoking based on their online activities. On the other hand, Alex and Tom ride their bicycles to the club David mentioned to find Alan. At that moment, they see Alan talking to CIA officials there. Shortly after, the team has captured Daniel for interrogation. After being threatened to be sent to Guantanamo, Daniel confesses to hiring a hacker named Simon Marriott to obtain his secret data. Sometime later, Brian talks about the upcoming visit of the American president to London next week, which aligns with Damian's charity dinner. It turns out, Damian has made big donations to the president's efforts against drugs. After that, Alan tells Brian that he knows who the hacker behind the Pentagon attack is. After Alan left, Alex quickly followed him with his GoPro camera. At the same time, the intelligence team was watching Simon, also known as Smoking, near his house. Surprisingly, Alan was heading to the same place to catch Simon. Shortly after, Simon suspected something amiss and turned off all his computers. Suddenly, the special forces broke in, but Simon had already run away, after John discovered a secret passage that Simon used to escape. At the same time, Alex saw Simon just before he fled. Unfortunately, it was Alex who was apprehended by the Special Forces team, while Simon managed to escape and remotely detonate all his computers from a distance. Not long after, Mrs. Jones took Alex to the new British intelligence headquarters, where Alex told her about Yasin attacking Edward. But Mrs. Jones informed Alex that Yasin works for an international criminal organization that provides professional political assassination services for a small part of the world's elite. After that, Alan's dismissal of Alex's request to investigate Yasin by claiming that Yasin is in Myanmar disappoints Alex greatly, prompting him to choose to investigate alone. The scene changes to Amsterdam, where Damian Cray plans to launch an online game called Feathered Serpent in 8 days. Damian, known as the CIA deputy director, is famous for donating a lot of money to fight against drugs. After that, Damian assigned his assistant named Charlie to invite the best gamers from around the world to the launch, because Damian wants the game to be a big deal worldwide. On the other hand, Brian insists again that the British intelligence team needs to catch Smoking before the American president visits London. They want to stop any more threats that could put the president in danger. Brian also asks about the young person who was briefly captured, but Alan refuses to disclose Alex's identity. At the same time, even though Alex isn't directly involved in what happened to Sabina's father, he feels like he needs to investigate. After the hacker's escape, Smithers finds it difficult to track him down because all the data on Simon's computer has been destroyed, leaving no trace at all. Not willing to hear any excuses, Mrs. Jones presses him to get clues as soon as possible. On the other hand, Simon is seen arriving at a location on his motorbike and gets a room key from a landlady, but he asks his presence to be kept secret. Little does she know, one of the rooms is used as the hacker's headquarters. Meanwhile, Tom shows Alex a video from the GoPro showing Alex being caught by the intelligence team. Later, Alex meets Sabina to check her house, thinking someone might have targeted it looking for her father's belongings. While reviewing the GoPro footage, Tom accidentally sees Simon's motorbike license plate. Sometime later, Damian is interviewed by the London media about his upcoming game launch. Upon hearing this, Damian says that he'll stay in London for a week and promises that the game's profits will help fight against drugs. At the same time, Simon is seen listens carefully to Damian's word. After that, Damian explains that his brother died from drug addiction, which is why he's so passionate about the cause. On the other hand, Alex and Sabina searched Edward's computer for clues about Smoking, and it seems that Simon noticed their actions. At that moment, Simon turned on his computer's camera, watching them secretly without Alex noticing. After that, Alex became convinced that there might be a connection with Damian, whose disappearance made Alex suspicious, wondering if he was burned or if something was stolen. At the same time, Simon started to gather all information about Alex online. Meanwhile, Tom gave Alex the details of Smoking's motorcycle license plate, where this valuable information was immediately traced by Tom. But Tom didn't ask Mrs. Jones for help, but rather through Smithers. At that moment, Damian's team showed him a news story by Edward that was spreading online. Later, Smithers told Mrs. Jones and others that Simon owned a motorcycle, which could help find him. But Smithers didn't mention that Alex gave him this information. When Alex got home, he got 10 pizza deliveries that he didn't order. After that, Jack, Alex, and Tom's phones all rang at the same time, along with other devices connected to the internet. After that, Alex immediately realizes that Simon was behind it. Even though Alex didn't know much about Damian, he wanted to help Simon, also known as Smoking. The following day, just as Alex was going to class, Simon contacted him and they arranged to meet. After got rid of his phone's SIM card, Simon left the headquarters. As he passed through an intersection, his motorcycle was detected by a CCTV camera, which was immediately read by Smithers. Unexpectedly, Yasin showed up at the hacker's headquarters, looking for Simon. At that moment, he immediately killed a woman and Simon's friends ruthlessly. Watching from his phone, Simon saw Alex arrive at their meeting spot and then put a sensor at the entrance. Meanwhile, the intelligence team worked harder to find Simon. At that moment, Simon thought Alex knew about Damian's crimes from Edward's writings. But Alex was just pretending to get Simon to meet him. When Yasin entered, Alex immediately hid. At that moment, Yasin quickly caught Simon and killed him. Realizing there was someone else there, Yasin fired again. After that, Alex immediately fled but was pursued by Yasin. After recognizing that the person was Alex, Yasin decided to not pursue further. Soon after, the intelligence team came and found Simon dead. Shortly after, Alan held another meeting with Brian by discussing about Smoking's death that stopped the immediate threat to the American government. But it hinted at a bigger plan because he was killed by international criminals, and this could lead to more problems. After that, the intelligence team started investigating the hacker's headquarters, which Yasin had damaged. In the end, Mrs. Jones found a hidden camera there. Even though Smoking was dead, Alex now knew about Damian, who was a dangerous billionaire. Meanwhile, Damian told Charlie to recruit K7. The world's top gamer Damian needs to boost the launch of his latest game. On the other hand, Alex told Sabina about her father's danger from Damian, which was related to Edward's book. But when Alex told Sabina he used to be a spy, she didn't trust him anymore. Unfortunately, Alex's good intentions to help Sabina and her father have been misunderstood, which disappoint him. Not long after, during the intelligence team's meeting, they talk about the mysterious person who was there before Simon died but got away. They think it might be Alex, although they don't know for sure. Meanwhile, Damian insists on Evelyn recruiting K7. Damian plans for K7 to fail if the gamer is too good and might challenge their own created player. In another meeting, Alex requests Smithers for information about Damian. However, Smithers isn't sure if Damian is involved in serious crimes despite being close to the American president. But Alex is sure that Damian is a criminal hiding behind charity work. Even though Smithers has doubts, he tells Alex about people connected to Damian. Suddenly, Alex recognizes one of Damian's workers, Charlie, from a photo with Edward. Without wasting time, Alex decides to meet Charlie and investigate their connection, while pretending to know Edward. On the other hand, Smithers tells the team they need to look into Damian's actions because Scorpia, a suspicious group, is interested in him, and this information was first mentioned by Alex. At the same time, Smithers worries Damian's bad plans might happen when the American president visits this week. At first, Charlie didn't believe his boss was involved in Edward's attack. But when Smoking mentioned Damian's evil side to Alex before he died, Charlie admitted there might be a connection. It turns out, Charlie and Edward knew each other from college, and Charlie says that Damian is obsessed with his new game and has been bothering the programmers for months. Upon hearing this, Alex wonders if the game is trying to steal secret information or control players' minds, and Alex also wants to know why Damian has to act violent. After that, Alex asks for a copy of the game to stop more problems. However, Charlie can't give him one, but Damian plans to give a copy to the winner of a gaming contest he's organizing. Charlie then suggests Alex enter the contest while disguised as K7. Meanwhile, Smithers finally tells Mrs. Jones that he got information about Damian from Alex. At the same time, even though Alex isn't great at gaming, he relies on his skilled friend to get ready for the upcoming competition. Seeing the seriousness of the situation, Alex quickly signs up for the game as K7, which surprises K7, whose real identity is unknown. Not long after, Alex arrives at the location of the competition, attended by 9 of the world's best gamers. When Damian asks K7, who is Alex in disguise, about the second version of the game. To keep up the act, Alex challenges Damian directly to win the prize. Apparently, this game is not just an ordinary online game. It has been designed so that players can directly feel the effects of the game. So, when a player receives a blow or a shot, their body will feel the pain. Shortly after, Alex strategically positions himself in a circle, facing enemy attacks and quickly defeating them. At the same time, Damian gets more anxious as Alex keeps winning, so he tells Evelyn to make Alex's level higher. Damian wants Alex to fail in the game, even if it means risking Alex's life. But despite the level increases, Alex keeps winning. After that, Damian tries cheating by sending a monster to stop Alex, but Alex comes up with a smart plan. He then breaks the support bars of the server computer and takes the prize. After that, he ran from the location, even though Damian's henchmen try to stop him. Luckily, the real K7 named Kyra helps Alex by sending messages to guide him to safety. Then before leaving, Damian is surprised by the appearance of Yasin. As Alex suspected earlier, it turns out Damian did indeed pay Yasin to kill Edward and Simon to conceal his crimes. At that moment, Damian is upset because K7 interrupted his game launch, so he tells Yasin to get rid of them, not knowing it's Alex. Yasin assures Damian that K7 won't be a problem anymore. Back at home, Damian is greeted by his employee named Smith. In this house, Damian recalls when he was still a child, seeing his older brother named Joe die from a drug overdose. Returning to Alex, who has successfully obtained a copy of Damian's latest game, but it's not clear what connection this game has to make Damian to kill Edward. And Damian even uses the services of an international hitman. Meanwhile, British intelligence and CIA teams talk about possible threats to the American president. They're not just worried about the nuclear system, but also about where the president will go. But Brian isn't sure if the president will cancel his visit just because of speculation. After that, the CIA deputy director shows CCTV footage of Alex leaving a place where a body was found. Using Alex as a spy is complicated legally because he's still a teenager, but the situation is serious because it could put the president's safety at risk. Alan also realizes this serious situation, even though he said Alex doesn't work for him anymore. At the same time, Evelyn tells Damian who the person pretending to be K7 was, and found out that there was a traitor that helping to steal the game. Upon hearing this, Damian tells Evelyn to find out who the traitor is. Meanwhile, Charlie goes to the hospital to talk to Sabina about Alex's investigation into her father's attackers. Sometime later, Kyra is asked to check the stolen game's second version because Alex thinks there might be hidden things in it. But Kyra hasn't found anything big yet. The game seems normal with war and monsters, but it needs a special computer to unlock the encryption code. Meanwhile, Yasin knows that Alex is playing the game more, with an encryption data volume reaching hundreds of gigabytes, and it requires 20 to 30 computers to speed up the process. After that, Alex plans to use the school's lab computers to help with this. Not long after, Alex and his two friends infiltrate the school. As a hacker expert, Kyra takes over next. While waiting for the encryption process to be completed, Alex tells about Yasin, who always appears in his mind. Suddenly, Tom informs them that their actions have been discovered, and the intelligence team came there after tracking the phone carried by Alex. It turns out, John comes to pick up Alex because Alan wants to meet him. Upon arriving at the headquarters, the interrogation process is carried out first. Before meeting the intelligence leader, Mrs. Jones gives something to Alex. After that, Alex sarcastically remarks about Alan suddenly calling him, even though Alan himself said Alex is no longer his agent. When asked about Yasin, Alan reluctantly admits that Yasin had killed Alex's uncle, and he also works for an international criminal organization called Scorpia. After that, Alan tells Alex to stay away from Damian's case to keep him safe, because Scorpia is targeting the President of America. But Alan doesn't believe Damian is behind it, as Damian is friends with the President and helps with the anti-drug work. However, Alex still thinks Damian is hiding things in his game, even though there's no proof and Alex won't change his mind. Meanwhile, Damian is called to meet the CIA deputy director due to a threat against him. After that, Damian is surprised when Evelyn shows CCTV footage of when Charlie met Sabina. This is how Damian learns that his henchman betrayed him. Shortly after, Brian and Mrs. Jones visit Damian about the threat to him and the President of America. They suggest canceling the dinner and charity event he organized. But Damian tells them about his brother that died from drugs. And since then, Damian has been fighting against drugs, so he refuses to cancel his event. After Kyra finishes scanning, she discovers something strange in the game app. However, everything is locked with a very complicated code. Even with the best computer, it could take a very long time to unlock it. The only way is to go to the original server in Kraystar, Amsterdam. But Alex can't continue because Alan warned him not to. At the same time, the intelligence team overhears their conversation through tapping. where Alex decides to stop and go back to school. Upon hearing this, Alan is relieved because Alex won't interfere anymore. But Smithers and Mrs. Jones doubt Alex would give up so easily, and they decided to go to the school lab. Apparently, Alex pretends to give up because he knows that he's being tapped. But secretly, Alex writes down the next plan regarding someone named Juliet. It turns out, Alex already knows they've placed listening devices in his things. He hides tracking devices in envelopes. Before going to Amsterdam, Alex tells Jack to look into Damian's crimes. Then Alex and his friends give the envelopes with tracking devices to their friends, so Alan and the intelligence team think Alex is somewhere else. Meanwhile, Alex and his friends go to Amsterdam. Not long after, Alex and his two friends reach Amsterdam and settle into an apartment before planning to infiltrate Damian's game research center. After that, Alex and his team plan based on photos of Damian's facility, which surprisingly lacks proper walls or barbed wire for protection. At the same time, despite evidence of Charlie's betrayal, Damian won't take action against him yet. Meanwhile, the CIA and British intelligence focus on securing the American president for the upcoming event, where Alan warns Brian not to underestimate Scorpia due to their extensive resources and determination. Shortly after, John and Mrs. Jones go to Damian's house to ensure his and the president's safety. Smith, the head of house security, assures them everything is fine and informs them Damian will briefly visit Amsterdam before the software launch that's happening simultaneously with the dinner event with the president and elites. After that, Smith confesses to John about his past as a former SAS Special Forces member before becoming Damian's security chief. At the same time, Tom and Kyra pretend to be lost near the research checkpoint while a car arrives. Meanwhile, Alex explores a nearby ditch and discovers the fence's security system uses infrared light. In another place, Damian meets Yasin again to ensure their plans won't be disrupted by the intelligence team. At that moment, Yasin assures Damian that Alan and his team will be handled by Scorpia. After that, Damian speaks with Charlie after discovering that he has reconnected with Edward. Damian tries to convince Charlie of his innocence, contrary to what people have assumed. At the same time, Tom reveals the hidden GoPro camera from his jacket when they arrive at the checkpoint. Using the GoPro footage, Alex and the team plan to infiltrate the area after learning that the truck will return in the afternoon. To avoid detection by the intelligence team, they buy 3 phones with cash, and Kyra secretly steals a credit card scanner. After that, the phones are distributed to Alex and Tom, and they begin their operation. As the truck approached, Tom fakes a fall from his bike. When the driver stops to help, Alex quickly swipes the access card, while Kyra opens the truck door. After that, they both enter the research center. Meanwhile, Jack and a colleague are tasked with checking files related to Damian's rehabilitation center acquisition. Returning to Alex, when opening a box inside the location, Alex wonders why there are hazmat suits to prevent chemical spills when this location should only be a game research center. Suddenly, an alarm sounded, causing them to immediately leave the location carrying the hacked access card. At the same time, Yasin begins to prepare himself with a new identity named Thomas and demands payment of £6.5 million to assassinate the American president. On the other hand, Smithers struggles to find evidence of Damian's evil plans because everything seems clean. After that, Alex notices Evelyn talking to programmers and suspects they're searching Damian's office for evidence. At the same time, Brian expresses concern to Mrs. Jones about Alan, revealing that he knew about Scorpia's activity months ago but didn't inform the CIA. Out of the blue, Smithers stumbled upon a lead. He uncovered evidence of a £6.5 million payment linked to Scorpia made by someone named Thomas, suspected of plotting the president's assassination. At the same time, Alex and Kyra discovered a flight plan involving Air Force One. They pondered whether Damian aimed to harm the president or if a more extensive conspiracy was at play. After that, Kyra hacked into Evelyn's account in the server room, but they needed at least 20 minutes to get access to her game code. During the raid on Thomas's house, the special forces failed to apprehend him but found firearms and passports. Tom promptly alerted Alex when he noticed a suspicious car entering the game research center, suspected as a decoy. It turned out to be Damian, prompting Alex and Kyra to leave with the laptop. Eventually, Damian admitted to Charlie that he paid someone to kill Smoking and put Edward in a coma. At the same time, John caught Smith with the passport he found. On the other hand, Charlie decided to leave, after he didn't want to get involved in his boss's evil plans. When Damian intended to kill Charlie, Alex and Kyra came out of hiding, but Alex still failed to stop him. Now Alex is in Damian's grip, who knows that Alex has deceived him by pretending to be K7, while Kyra is being questioned by Evelyn. After that, Damian forced Alex to reveal anyone involved, that daring to breach his research center. If Alex refuses, Damian will not hesitate to kill his friend. After that, Damian's security chief was carrying a pistol and untraceable heart-poisoning liquid. On the other hand, the intelligence team has captured Smith, who is suspected of targeting the president. However, the CIA felt something was amiss because Scorpia's operation process was not like this, as the capture was too easy. When John interrogated him, Smith asked in return what Scorpia was. Upon hearing this, John suspected that Smith had been set up by them. Meanwhile, Tom was worried about Alex's safety, so he contacted Jack for help, and coincidentally, Jack was at Damian's company. After that, Tom asked Jack to infiltrate Evelyn's office. After successfully entering, Jack found Evelyn's laptop and intentionally used the laptop to send a notification email through her official account that the launch of their latest game was cancelled, which confusing Damian and his henchmen. Meanwhile, Evelyn was seen replayed the footage of Alex meeting Sabina. At that time, Damian was unaware that Alex was a former agent recruited by the British intelligence team. Suddenly, news of the game launch cancellation spread widely, leaving Damian furious and warned Evelyn because the leaked information came from her account, which Damian had believed was unhackable. Because of this, Damian had to hold a press conference regarding this attack to ensure the launch of his latest game would still proceed on time. Meanwhile, Kyra finally completed her task, while Alex found a tube containing liquid identical to what the team found when capturing Smith, which contained heart-stopping poison. Despite not knowing its contents, Alex still took it. At the same time, Evelyn just realized that her game code had been stolen, coincidentally with Damian, who lost his tube of liquid. Shortly after, Alex and Kyra attempted to leave the headquarters, but Damian launched a shooter drone controlled directly by him online to stop them. Realizing they were being targeted, Alex and Kyra immediately fled, while avoiding a barrage of shots from the drone. After that, they entered the forest, but Damian used infrared sensors on the drones. Later, they met Tom and entered the enclosed garden together, with the drone chasing after them, which resulting in Alex and his two friends almost getting shot. Eventually, a metal pipe thrown by Alex disabled the drone. Upon knowing this, Damian immediately contacted Scorpia, asking them to kill Alex immediately. At the same time, Yasin had disguised himself as a doctor and took Sabina away. On the other hand, Air Force One that carrying the President of America has landed in London, where Mrs. Jones was contacted by Alex, who asked for a meeting because he had important information. Shortly after, Alex showed the encrypted complete version of Damian's latest game, to be launched that evening. At that moment, he was convinced that the game wasn't an ordinary game as something was hidden within it as part of Damian's criminal plan. After that, Alex explained that Damian had already killed Charlie and Scorpia was the organization assisting his evil plan. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Jones believed their story, and the game was given to be investigated by Smithers, with Kyra joining to assist him. After that, Jack was summoned by his superior after his colleague reported Jack's suspicious actions in Damian's company. However, without clear reason, Jack was still fired from the job. At the same time, Damian suddenly contacted Alex, demanding the return of the stolen tube of liquid. However, Alex refused, and Alex was shocked to see that Sabina had been kidnapped. Not long after, Alex followed Damian's instructions to a place that turned out to be full of mercenaries. At that place, Alex met with Yasin. During their encounter, Yasin searched Alex and took his phone and the tube. At that moment, Yasin even admitted to killing Alex's uncle, acknowledging his mistake and trusting his colleagues. After that, Damian revealed that the tube contained the fingerprint of the President of America. Despite getting what he wanted, Damian still intended to kill Alex and Sabina. However, Yasin disagreed, seeing them as more valuable alive as hostages, especially Alex, who had worked for British intelligence. In the end, both Alex and Sabina were captured and imprisoned. Meanwhile, Kyra and Smithers, both IT experts, work hard to figure out Damian's secret plans hidden in the game. At the same time, the intelligence team starts to worry when Damian disappears, even though the president is already at the event location. After Sabina is captured, Alex tries to break free. Shortly after, Damian and his mercenaries start to move, where Alex manages to climb onto the truck driven by Damian's team. On the other hand, Mrs. Jones finally tells Brian that Damian is planning to attack the president, while Alan quickly takes Mrs. Jones away because he doesn't trust her or Alex. Since the safety of the President of America is very important, the CIA deputy director informs the presidential security team. When Tom reaches Alex's house, he finds it empty except for Alex's phone on the ground, with one of his SIM cards missing from its envelope. Shortly after reaching a location, a drone is launched from a truck, which detected by the runway tower as an aircraft. After that, Damian as the pilot, claiming his aircraft carrying dangerous gas is leaking and requesting clearance. Meanwhile, from Kyra investigation, she suspects that when the game launches, all worldwide gamers will be connected, which Damian will exploiting this for his evil plan. After that, Tom tells Kyra that Alex has vanished and asks for her help. Meanwhile, the runway authorities contact the special gas leak security team, unaware that they are Damian's henchmen. Upon reaching the runway, Damian and Yasin eliminate the president's guards. Upon entering the control room, Evelyn immediately starts working, while Alex disguised himself using the gas-proof suit. Not long after, Kyra and Smithers feel they have failed because the game launch has already begun. In a matter of seconds, 200 million players are connected, and with the power of his supercomputer, Damian can hack into anything, starting from communication satellites. Even the Pentagon is no match for him. While tracking Alex's whereabouts, Kyra and Smithers now realize Damian is conducting his hacking from within Air Force One. In the end, Smithers had to use a shortwave radio. At the same time, Alex has managed to free Sabina, but he wants to know Damian's true plan. Meanwhile, other intelligence teams realize the threat to the president is just a distraction because Damian needs Air Force One to launch a nuclear attack. Shortly after, the Pentagon headquarters is startled by communication contact from the president, who is actually Damian, disguising his face with special technology. At that moment, the general is tasked with launching the nuclear missiles due to the communication satellite attack, but he requests authorization codes first. At the same time, Kyra deliberately creates a disturbance to lure Yasin out of the control room, and Alex seizes this opportunity to climb up to prevent the nuclear launch. As Alex fights with Damian, his gun accidentally shoots and hits Yasin. Meanwhile, Sabina confronts Evelyn to assist Alex. Then Damian gains control again and attempts to harm Alex, but Yasin shoots Damian first. At that moment, Yasin reveals himself as a friend of Alex's father, so he won't kill him. He says if Alex wants to learn more, he has to find Scorpia. Later, Alex asks the Pentagon general to stop the nuclear launch, which could start a big war. After that, he proves that the orders are fake, and the launch gets cancelled. Shortly after, the British security forces show up and Alex notices that Yasin is missing. Once again, the British intelligence team is outpaced by Alex, who successfully prevents nuclear war. After that, Alan proudly takes credit, thinking the CIA and the American president are pleased, ignoring Alex's hard work for this success. Upon returning home, Mrs. Jones apologizes to Alex and also gives him official documents declaring that Jack as his legal guardian recognized by the state. To celebrate this, Alex is asked where he wants to go on vacation. At that moment, Alex remembers Yasin's words to find Widow and Scorpia if he wants to know Yasin's true identity. After that, the series ended. Moral lesson: the story, when you're chasing the bad guys, don't forget to check the pizza delivery, because the answer to all your problems may be hidden in a pizza box.